Gurgaon, which is the most, I would say, noted startup cities today in the country. I am currently based in Noida, so I am joining from here. And I welcome all the viewers on YouTube as well as who have joined us on live show here at the webinar. Welcome, everybody. So this whole concept started a week back, though it was on the back of our mind about the things which is going on for the last 3 months. So what has happened in the last 2 years? I'll quickly take 5 minutes and then we will start the Q&A with our panelists. The last 2 years has been quite a watershed moment for startup ecosystem as well as technology ecosystem. If you look at 2020, when we started, the concept of work from home did not exist at all. There were few instances, people working from home in US and other places, but they were more considered to be the consultants, not just regular employees. They were hired for a particular project and they moved from project to project. I know so many people in different parts of the US who have done it for years, but they were never hired as a full-time employee of a company. So the concept did not exist. Few of the people were going on for a week or two. That's a different story. 2020 when it happened, so the whole ecosystem changed from offline, which is like on the office, to online, and it was quite comfortable. And people started misusing this opportunity. They started doing 2 or 3 jobs, given their profile, which was considered to be, some gig attempt or something, so that was situation was there. At the same time, because of the online ecosystem, the startup boom was happening. And the large tech companies like Microsoft, Amazon, Twitter, or Facebook, they banged upon the new technologies which are relatively immature as of today. For example, the metaverse. So it is about to start. I would say it is maturing technology. And slowly what happened, because to support this boom of online buying, online gaming, online metaverse, thousands and thousands of people were hired across the world at a very higher salary. Just to give you a couple of examples, and some of you may be part of it, a person with 2 years of experience in Hyderabad or Gurgaon was demanding 25 lakh to 30 lakh rupees on compared to what he was demanding, relatively less amount of money a year back or so. So there was a bubble which was there, and that bubble suddenly affected thousands of people. And some of the people were part of the bubble, and some of the people were genuine people, like who were working hard in the last tech company. So when the demand was not able to suffice the supply, then suddenly there was a situation where the people were getting laid off. And that is affected across the, so there was an Economic Time article which was there. And during the webinar, I'll try to put the link on the chat as well, which says the list of the companies which have done the layoff in the last 2 or 3 months. So I was reading a couple of statistics. From November 2022 onwards, approximately 200,000 people are laid off just in US, and that is the direct numbers. And the people who are consultant and contractual employee, those numbers certainly does not come into the foray right away. So our estimate is close to 200,000 to 400,000 people are laid off, and 40% of these people who are laid off are Indians. Now there arise several challenges. The first challenge is about getting a job. Now second, getting a job is still okay because you have a severance pay for 3 to 6 months time. You can go for a travel. There are hundreds of articles which are written that how do you enjoy your layoff period, what you can do. That is fine. Now the real challenge comes in when it comes to the visa issue. As per the current policy, only 60 days are given to renew your visa. That means you have to find a job within 60 days time. Otherwise, you have to go back to your home country. So I was speaking to some of the friends day before yesterday. They tell me that approximately 5,000 people have already left US and they are coming to India because they are not able to find jobs since November. So their 60 days period is getting over. Imagine you have laid off in January, so your 60 days period will get over in March. So that cycle goes on. So that's another big challenge. The third challenge is about the people who have worked for a long period of time in the large tech, for example, in Google or Twitter or Microsoft. Things are relatively easy as compared to the startup world. So that's whole thing come to our mind, and we said, why don't we bring in people who have understanding of how to start up after working in extremely large companies in a very well paying jobs, and what they have done, and whether they are happy or they are sad, they have done the right decision. So this seminar was set up. Just to give you a little bit of detailed background of my panelist today, I have Dinesh Prasad. Dinesh was working with Qualcomm, which is one of the largest tech companies in the world, for almost 20 years. He was one of the CXOs of India. Quite high salary he was drawing. And one fine day he said, I'm getting bored. I need to do something else. And he became an investor initially. And then he started his own company called Navares EdTech, which is doing a phenomenal work in space education. Now they are working with thousands of kids across the country in building up the new style of science, which is called space science, which is, of course, one of the future techs. So Dinesh is also helping number of startups in doing so. And I'm quite sure that he is enjoying his time outside Qualcomm. And we will certainly ask whether he's regret his time or still enjoying the time. And then I have Rajesh Srivastava. Rajesh is the graduate of IIT Kharagpur. He was in US. He became the US citizen, but one day he decided to come back to India. And what I believe now is, I think he, for almost 10 years, despite of having US citizenship, he has a house in Seattle, and he came down to India, and he was part of the Microsoft, and he was part of the Bing team, which in fact, he was responsible of designing the Bing web search engine. And he came back, and one day, one of his friend who ex-Microsoft reported to Steve Ballmer, Eric Gilmore, he invited him to join a new company called Turvo. Now, Turvo had done exceedingly well. Recently, they made an exit, a very handsome exit. In fact, now it is part of the larger ecosystem in US. Rajesh is the managing director of Turvo for the last 5 years. I know that he has been working, and he has built up the entire ecosystem in India. So leaving an extremely plush job, living an American lifestyle, coming to Hyderabad with young kids, starting up a new company, setting up the new company, how his journey would be. So that is another thing which I would request Rajesh to reflect upon. So two panelists will give you an idea about why they have switched in. What does it take to become a startup? Does it make sense to work for a startup or do your startup? And what is the reason for you not to lose hope and look for opportunity, because there is always a light in the end of the tunnel. So with this, I'll stop here, and I will first request Dinesh to quickly reflect upon maybe a minute or so about his journey in Qualcomm.
Thanks, Nikhil, and good evening to all of you. Good morning if you are joining from US or different parts of the world, right? So yes, Nikhil rightly pointed out, right? I spent almost 27 years in the corporate world, 20 plus years in Qualcomm. And see, there are two ways of looking at it, right? One is people like us who have spent enough time with the corporate and want to do something on their own is one angle of the problem, right? So, or one outlook that one can look at. There's another bigger problem that, Nikhil, that exists today is the younger lot of employed engineers in US who are being laid out. So there are two buckets, right? There's a bucket which is like a 0 to 5 or 0 to 10 years experience bucket. And then there are senior guys in US or abroad who are getting laid off at a later stage in their career, right? So there are two different extremes, right? And both of them have different financial, family dependencies and stuff. The other economic challenges are quite different. So we should treat the problem in a slightly different ways by addressing both the sides of the spectrum. Okay, so coming back to the point that you asked about my regret or my pleasure of moving out, the fundamental reasons I moved out because I wanted to do something more meaningful in life and wanted to see if some way I could contribute to the ecosystem and the growing economy that India was getting into. as you all see, like space sector, I am a strong believer that India has one golden opportunity to become the space center for the world. And the way the things are happening in the Indian ecosystem, and Hyderabad becoming the Telangana or that belt becoming the space center for a large part of the activity that's happening there. There is definitely large opportunity for any company to look at from a space evolution and other activities around it. So obviously, I have no regrets. I've been advising multiple companies, and I would say that I fall in the later part of the spectrum and not the early part of the spectrum. But let me get to Nikhil, if I can take a few minutes to reflect on your points before Rajesh jumps in. So one of the biggest challenge that happened in COVID was a lot of tech got developed in a very different environment to address the market opportunities. Okay, and those were largely to address the work from home culture. So which created two problems, right? There were tech getting developed to address a problem which is now getting over worldwide, because things are moving away from an online culture to a hybrid to an offline culture now. Largely saying it's kind of restoring back. So a lot of investment that went in accelerating that or addressing the gap during COVID are becoming secondary for a lot of software that got developed in the whole process. The other thing, like you rightly pointed out, was the Web 3.0 or the metaverse side of things, which has also got accelerated because of the COVID situation. If you look at the metaverse for consumer, was purely a gap filling activity from a COVID generated scenario. Okay, there was no practical need for it, but it got generated, it got accelerated the entire thing. Now, if different companies invested a lot of resources behind it and thought that's going to continue scaling up, that's where the gap is coming now. Okay, those are two problems, right? The third problem which I see is because of this accelerated requirement of software resources, the moonlighting systems got into active process in the Indian ecosystem and globally, which also created a problem because it started taking away kind of a job, like a 1.5 job was one guy was doing. So he's taking away somebody's capability for half the value, right? So he was eating up into the resources of that. So these are three fundamental problems, and they're some way interlinked to each other to figure out, which is why to some extent, this is a situation that is getting created where a lot of companies have to kind of let go the kind of number you're talking about. I'll kind of build up later on, let Rajesh talk about a little bit more before I jump into the other topics.
Yeah,
sure.
Thanks, Dinesh. Thanks, Nikhil. I'll be just brief. Early on when I went to US, I had a great fortune to work with some really outstanding people who have been successful and pretty much, from my basic markers of wealth and time and the contribution. So one of the things I learned from them is, by the time most people realize they have enough money, they have lost time, they have lost health, and they have basically lost the time with being near the dear ones, right? And that was one thing where I was part of the founding team of Bing. We built some of the core systems for Bing in US, and we got an amazing opportunity to come and build the Bing team here. And it was first generation immigrant. It was always like, hey, how is it going to be in India? And it's been now 12 years. And I can tell you, we are absolutely happy. But more importantly, I could see how India is going on a hockey stick curve and how the opportunities in India are a lot more, not just in terms of the capital, not in terms of, but just the surface area. And now we talk a lot about India stack. There was no India stack at that time. but I could see how the techies are coalescing towards building something big in India. And I think with the in 2014, with the new things coming up and the new government in motion, I think that helped quite a bit formalizing that. So that was the whole thing. I wanted to do more. I wanted to be near near family, near the dear ones, and at the same time contribute in the biggest possible way. And that was my reason. I don't regret it. Same reason sort of for leaving Microsoft after 11 years and being part of the logistics domain. Again, the opportunity is just GDP sized. And for a techie, there is no better place to be when starting out and really building the team. And that has been a great experience again. So I'll hand it over to you, Nikhil. I'll be brief, like I said.
I think I agree with both of you what you have said about the adrenaline rush that you miss in an extremely structured environment like Qualcomm or Microsoft and anywhere. So that is something which like excitement to do something. Like today, the opportunities are so much. Today, if you are a bit educated, and if you don't have pressing liabilities, like in old movie, it was said that बहन की शादी करनी है और घर पे माँ बीमार है, that pressing liabilities are not there, then you can actually live a different kind of life. What we have started like 25 years back when we started building our career, the options were not there. So today you can change jobs quite quickly, you can experiment and nobody minds you. You can say and go to a company, say, hey, I've tried 3 kind of startups, like 2 startups. I was job and I start one startup. I've done the startup. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. I'm looking for a job. Most likely, people like Dinesh and Rajesh will hire you. Earlier, even 6-7 years back, this was not the situation. The gap in the CV, people used to lie about those gaps. That, okay, I have done a startup, but I will not show because it will show a black remark. So today, if you have laid off or if you are looking for new opportunity and experimentation, as Sachin Tendulkar, I remember once said, like, if you have to do something, do it now. You don't have to wait for another 40 years. So coming back to that question is, when you are coming from an extremely structured environment, how do you cope up in absolutely opposite side in an unstructured environment where there is no support from HR, there is no travel desk, there is no car, there is like no coupons which are handed over to you every weekend. So what do you do at that time? Like, how do you cope up that kind of like change in situation for you? I'll start, Rajesh.
Okay, great. I think first thing is like, how do you measure? One is comfort, and one is, are you realizing your full potential, right? Are you contributing in the best way possible? I think and this is where a good life always keeps us away from a great life is what I believe, right? If I'm looking for, hey, I'm getting a coupon to go and watch the IPL match in Hyderabad, and that is my definition of success, and that is what really internally gives me the satisfaction. Hey, look, I think then I think, it's better to be part of a bigger company, because the way the big companies work essentially is they will give you a small piece of work just to make sure that, their whole thing is not jeopardized. It's all risk mitigation, right? So if that is the success, coming back to Nikhil, your point is the travel desk, the car and the support system. I think one should think hard whether they want to change. That is the important bit. But if it is, hey, I can do a lot more, I can live and contribute a lot more to the society, to the startup ecosystem, to the tech ecosystem at large, and I am doing only a small teeny bit of what I could do. If that is the goal, and if that is where the mental marker is, I think then, you are ready, because then everything else sort of falls in place. But yes, it does take a little bit of getting used to But if, like I said, if your eye is on the bigger goal, a lot of people before me, a lot of people even after me have gone over the hump. So it's not something that is unsurmountable.
So Rajesh, thanks a lot for giving me for my tweet of the day. Good life keeps you away from a great life. They're absolutely like I agree. You know, to build up a great life, you have to go through the humps. You have to pass the desert, or you have to cross the channel. You have to do something.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you can live a simple life. And good life does not mean that you have to stay in a Silicon Valley or Gurgaon or Hyderabad.
Correct.
You can go to some your gaon, and you can have a good life. You can have you're extremely comfortable, and
Right.
sometimes long for. In fact, during the COVID time, hundreds of time, like we have thought about that. Okay, we'll start living in Uttarakhand and we will go and live in Goa. But the reason that we have not done it, because that was a good life, and you cannot make it great in those places. It is challenging for you to make it great, or you can choose a social path. You can make it great. You can go there. You can win a Nobel Prize. You can win a Maxey Award, or you can become a Padma Shri doing bit. But that changes for you, because you have chosen to leave the good life in Gurgaon and gone to a village to do something different for the society. So that is a different thing. I absolutely agree. Thanks a lot. Dinesh, according to you.
Yeah,
Um,
I think I just want to build on Rajesh's point. I think there are two ways of looking at it, right? One is the spectrum of startup, or as a definition, right? If you look at the early stage of the startup bucket, or you look at the late stage startup bucket. In the late stage startup bucket, the culture or the benefits, or you might get closer to a larger corporate also with some of these larger startups who can be called off, right? Who are getting into Series B, Series C kind of a situation, right? The struggle starts when you are at an early stage startup where economics, the responsibilities are very, very different. And then the compromises and the time that you spend behind it is also a little bit of tiresome if you're not used to of it. But again, it comes with a lot of opportunity because you get this is the fun part of it, right? When you join an early stage startup, the opportunity that you get to put on multiple hats makes you so much complete and fulfilling that you can never get in any of the large corporates that you are in. So there is no corporate politics, or there is no fad in the discussions that happens in an early stage or startups, because it's very, 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 very decisive, and everybody becomes part of the decision making process. So it's a very fulfilling experience if you get in at that stage in any organization.
Great. So I absolutely agree. Like, it's a fulfilling experience. You are living a good life or a great life. I must urge my attendees on here plus on the YouTube who are watching, they can send us, they can ask the question. There are a couple of questions already coming in. As the question come in, we may take a couple of questions, or we may take it in the end, but keep on typing your questions. So there is a question which has come, I think, which is fairly straightforward. What is the reason for layoffs, and what is the plan for the affected employee? So perhaps you can reflect upon that, why the people are getting laid off. I think that question has been partially answered, but what's the plan for the affected employee? I think that's a relevant question for our webinar, so we will take it up. So what's the plan for the affected employee? I have said about the 60 days visa period. That's one. There are employees affected in India also. What they should do about it? They should look for a plus job. They can work for a startup. What opportunities are coming in startup ecosystem? Maybe you can give you example from your own startup. Are you looking for people? You may be a small startup or large startup, but are you looking to hire 10 people, 100 people, 1,000 people? What's going on with your own companies?
Yeah, so I think in fact, most startups are very open to take in good talent, right? The key question in today's domain is that you will have to continuously keep on uplifting your educational quotient, okay? Because things are very, very dynamic these days when it comes to, at least on on the software or the IT side of activities. So if you are not getting yourself out of your comfort zone and not trying to pick up the latest and the greatest that's happening in the domain, that's going to become a challenge. So that's like a very standard statement that probably you might be hearing from different places. But having said that, yes, every organization is looking for good talent. And there's a lot of startups who are looking for talent. But again, having said that, there are certain verticals in startups also. Like if you look at, there's been a lot of layoffs in the edtech domain and in the Indian ecosystem also. And that is also an after effect of the COVID impact, right? The post-COVID impact, where overcapacity was being built with the assumption that COVID is going to stay here for perpetually. Okay, so people didn't ever calculate like what happens if things go south and things go normal. And that's one of the fundamental reasons why this whole layoff situation has risen to a large extent. And there are a lot of companies are also getting into a layoff situation because some of these culture of work from home in software IT industry is also forcing a lot of companies to take actions because they can't keep people are getting so comfortable that they don't want to come back to the office. So those are like fundamental problems. Like if you're talking specifically, Nikhil, about if the companies are interested in hiring, yes, of course they are. In fact, we keep looking out for good talent all the time. So.
Yeah, Rajesh, are you looking for people?
Of course, I'm hiring in US, particularly in Dallas. I'm hiring in Hyderabad. And again, for good talent, we are always open. Even, this is one thing that is good with the startups is with a big company, you need to go through the budget projection, you need to get approval for every position and so on and so forth. But for a startup, the process is shorter. So for good talent, we are looking to do anything and everything that we can. But I would like to second what Dinesh said, which is I think we should look at every day or on a smaller window. How are we contributing? Are we contributing to the bottom line? Because that's what startups are all about, which is, am I contributing in a as much as possible, and am I doing my best work, and am I giving my best contribution? Reskilling is there, learning new things, being able to work with people, but honing into your question, Nikhil, yes, I am hiring. I'm hiring in India. I am hiring in US.
So I think it's the difference what I have seen in large established companies and startup is that in established company, you can go and ask like what I'm getting. I'm getting the salary. I'm getting a foreign travel. I'm getting this. I'm getting that. I'm getting a bonus. So that's something which is a question that you need to ask in the large company. In the smaller company and startup will like this question and answer is that what I'm able to give to the startup. I can give you one example from a friend. I'll not name the friend on online. Now he is a well-known startup mentor based out of Pune. He was the head of the very large bank, head of HR, earning a salary into multi-crores. And one fine day he said, I want to jump the wagon and I want to get into the startup world. And when he get into the startup world, to my surprise, he didn't do a startup himself. He said, I want to work with startups. I want to mentor them. And for 6 months, he figured it out. And he started going to a startup and saying that for 6 months, I'll work for free with you. But the question is that, and that is my condition, that I will participate in every meeting, whatever you do. And he started putting really the hard work. And today, he has 12 startups which are we have mentored. And at least 4 of them, which I know are more than, which are unicorns of the country, which are valued more than $300-400 million. And now the startups, like even say that I'm getting burned out, I need to have a time with my daughter, I want to go home. The startup not letting him go. They are giving him the shares, plus of course the handsome consulting fees. And what he told me last when I met him, that his value is today more than what he was working in a bank in a plush or a safe environment. But the thing what he has done is he started giving out first, then ask. So in a startup environment, if you are looking for a job or if you're looking for something, you have to think that what I am contributing. If you are able to contribute more than what the startup asks, the whole world open to you. The whole world, that's an advantage of starting up in this environment. There were two questions related to incubation. I'll answer, then I will jump into the another question. So IIT Kanpur, we have a student entrepreneurship policy. There is it's applicable to all the students of IIT Kanpur. So if you need any specific help, you can come down to the incubator. If you are in the campus, you can come down to incubator. You can talk to me or you can talk to the other colleagues who are there. There is some small funds are also available for specifically for the student. The long-term plans for the incubation center. So the government has putting a specific effort in promoting incubation and innovation at the grassroots level. Almost all the state governments are promoting new incubation center to be set up in the engineering college and even the business schools. Recently, there are a number of institutions, large institutions like Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, a couple of new IITs, a couple of new IIMs have contacted us in supporting their effort into the incubation. So that means there is a growing interest from the student and alumni who wish to participate in the startup ecosystem. Indian startup story is just starting up, I would say. It's not even matured yet. We are on the verge of like what we call a tipping point. The growth that you will see in the next 10 years in India will be phenomenal. So we are exactly in the same place where the China was around 20, 25 years back, or the US was around 40 years back. The stagnancy is there. There is a hunger which is there in the scientific community, in the startup community, among the young people, that no, we have to do something. We have to do something. We have to do on our own. So that hunger I have not seen myself for so many years. In the last 3 years, that hunger is there. No, I have to really build up something. And the hunger for doing not only for the startup, for inventing the new technologies, but doing something different, something extra. That was like an American mindset we used to call that we are able to demonstrate and witness in this country. So that's the changes which is happening, and where the incubation center or even more established startups which Rajesh run will play a role. So going back to the couple of questions, then we can open up for more questions from the audience. We have around 20 minutes to go. So many people now visa issue, like that's an extremely critical issue. There are people like who have been living in US and other places for a long time. For them, for the people like who are in Bangalore or Hyderabad, they are still in the country. Their life is disturbed, of course, but not so disturbed when it comes to the movements and others. But for people who have living for decades in US and their kids are working, their wife is pregnant, they are getting married, there are a lot of things which are going on with them. And for them, it's a huge change coming to an absolutely alien country, which is like India. For them, they have left this country. So how do startup like yours or people like you who are established in the ecosystem are willing to offer the help? And what the other colleagues of ours, we can request that what we can create an ecosystem so that they have a soft landing to our shores today. So what's your advice?
I would, these are some of the things we are doing. So some of our neighbors in Hyderabad had RIFs. What we did is we basically worked with their outplacement team. We have actually published our jobs internally to other companies who went through the rounds of layoffs. So, and we are seeing, as people are serving their notice period, they have the opportunity to come and interview and apply, and we can have a discussion. So that is one. Second, I think is also just reaching out to the outplacement team within the company as to what are the other things that they can, because many of these companies want to do the right thing, to be honest, for the people who are being let go. And they can help you either find something internally, or they may have their contacts that can help you get a soft landing. Third is, there are times, and then I'll go back to a little bit, and I'll go to a little bit abstraction, which is, third is, there are times when people who have been in the industry for years and years, and they have been wanting to do something, use this as an opportunity to do that, renew yourself, get back in the game again. That's third. And fourth and final, which is very pertinent to this, many times as techies, we have some idea that is burning in our head, but we never get the time to really focus on that. I think if that is you, use this opportunity. There is enough infrastructure in the company, in the country, enough capital in the country. And again, this group or Nikhil is part of a larger group. I can always help, guide, mentor, or do whatever that needs to be done. So these are the 3-4 things, just to give people, some milestones or some direction as they are at this juncture.
Manish, what's your advice for colleagues who are now facing challenge in US and coming
Yeah,
to
so
India?
I would say that there is still very large demand in the software ecosystem and other domains in India, and you should use LinkedIn very actively and reach out to your connections and look for LinkedIn job openings that is there, because a lot of companies in India are definitely looking out for. I'm sure that's the same case that you might be doing globally also. That's one platform that I've seen a lot of people leveraging it to their max extent. But if you look at the other side of the spectrum, where people don't have the visa issue, right? I'm sure people who have spent 10, 15, 20 years in US have crossed their H-1B issue, and they have some kind of different status. And so for them, some of the ideas which Rajesh just talked about is a good ideas to explore, right? Because there is a demand for senior, mature people who are look forward for ideas to incubate their ideas or collaborate with somebody and build their ideas into a startup idea and do something more meaningful. So those opportunities are always there. That's the way I would put it.
I think so. There are hundreds of opportunities. So today, at just our own IIT ecosystem, if you speak about, we have around 150 companies. And I can tell you, you can go online and you can check. There are more than 500 jobs available. I talk to any startup which is looking for 2-3 people minimum. And they are, of course, they may not be able to protect your salary, what you're getting other places, but that's fine. The intangible benefits that can be given to you in terms of ESOPs, in terms of fulfillment, in terms of doing something different. And if that your idea clicks, if both you and the other startup founder and few other friends can work together, they can really build up something more interesting and more meaningful. Today, if you look at the startup ecosystem as compared to Korea or the Europe or even the US, our startup ecosystem is relatively small given the size of the country. Domestic demand is high. You look at the e-commerce companies that we have, the e-commerce buying is still quite small. The fintech demand is still very small. So everything is relatively small as far as the size of the country is concerned, the comparative size of the country is concerned. So there is an opportunity of doing your work in anything, being in health sector, being in education, being in future tech like AI or cybersecurity, being in space education. Like, who have thought that somebody will come up with offering exclusive something for the space education? Like, so now, Dinesh, I know that you have been building the small satellites. Like, imagine your own kid can hold a satellite on his own. He can build a satellite on his own and that satellite will have base station in your school, and you can send this satellite. Now, what kind of learning that you will have? Like, we are always seeing the videos of NASA, but now imagine that you are able to do it from your own home. And there was a problem which Dinesh had identified, and he built up the gap. Okay, the kids are interested in space. They want to see the miniature satellite which can be sent. So start identifying the problems that you have. Like I remember with Rajesh and myself was having a discussion a year back about identity. People want to, the identities become so important. You go to any place, you require an Aadhaar card or an identity to be shown. How do you determine that the document that you are carrying is authentic? You can be having a fake or something, and you could be on receiving end. There is somebody who's come to collect the document and he say that, okay, I am this, and you hand over the document, but you don't know because you have just seen a plastic card. So how do you determine that you have a credible, authentic source for identity? Now, something as simple as identity, you can build up a whole startup. So you start thinking of ideas, you start thinking of problems which are there, and everything can be commercialized, everything can become a startup idea. That's how you should look at the problems. So there is opportunity exists. Like India is a land of opportunity. The reason is because India is also a land of problems. Like our life is like a sine graph. It goes up and down every day. Sometimes there is no power, sometimes there is no internet, sometimes there is a potholes, sometimes you are not able to get the loan, sometimes you are not able to get the proper diagnosis done in healthcare. So that's a reason, because there a problem exists, and we need to solve this problem. That's why there's the opportunity exists. Always like that. Like if life is straightforward, there are less number of opportunities. So because we have many problems to solve, that's why the opportunity exists. And that's a role of these incubators or institutions like IIT play a role, where we can help you out in building up the startup. Like one question has come from Mr. Tiwari about hapticless appliance control device. You want to file a patent. You can send us an email, and if your idea is accepted, we can incubate you. But this particular webinar is not focused on advising a particular startup. It's more of a how to build up your own startup in the future. So certainly you can send us an email, and we will try to help you in best way we can. So I'll take one more question, and then now the time is also getting up. The last question is about the new technologies, new ideas, because a lot of people come to me and ask this question: what's the hottest technology for 2023? Like, 2020, 21, Dinesh has said the hottest technology was metaverse or work from home. The new ideas and new things were created. And there are something like a seasonal flu also, technologies comes and go. But what more than the hottest technology, which is like more of a fad, I would say, what is more sustainable problems that you identify, where if somebody put a genuine hardworking effort, I'm not saying that it can become a unicorn, but can it make a decent living and create a difference in the society? So 2 ideas you suggest, and 2 ideas perhaps Rajesh can suggest, which will be useful.
Yeah, so let me go first. So I think one of the greatest or the most important thing, which is already being talked in the UN and the G20 forums and all that, is about sustainability. Okay, so any idea that is around sustainability, which helps reduce the carbon footprint, whether it's about renewable energy or whether it's about recycling or refurbishing, less plastics. You can think of any dimension: water treatment, preserving water, stuff around that, which is a global problem. But India being a large market, it's a great place to kind of play around with that. And there's another metric, there is another linked one which you can think about, which is one of my startups, which I'm mentoring them, is in kind of measuring the change that you're bringing through your industrial sustainability aspect. So one of the important criteria now is becoming for larger industry, where industries are moving to the industry 4.0 whatever term you want to toy there, is about digitization and leading to a more measurable energy generation or a carbon emission generation. And how do you manage, first of all, get a handle of how much you're contributing, and then figure out a platform which helps you reduce your carbon emission and the carbon contribution. And so things around this. So there's a lot of tech that is needed there, whether you call it enterprise metaverse, you call it digital twin, you call it IoT enabled stuff, you call it energy management solution, the whole lot of solution, building management solution, all getting integrated in some form or the other, where a digitized interface is going to be the next big thing that we're looking at as a technology evolving in the next few years.
Great. Thank you. Rajesh.
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, first thing I think, Nikhil, you said, and these are probably techies on the call, is understand that tech, what language to use, Node.js, Java, it's tools, it's means to an end, right? It's the idea is how to solve a business problem, how to solve a societal problem, and tech is an enabler, right? Tech is a means to an end. So I don't get wedded to one tech. I look at what can help me solve this problem. That's number one. Because tech will come and go. Today it is Node.js, tomorrow it will be Ruby on Rails, or I typically my startup that we have works on Java stack, right? Java open source, which has been there for years and years. So that is not a measure of how much change you can bring. But there are problems everywhere. You look at logistics, you look at even logistics in India, the way the roads are being built today, the way the trains are getting accelerated, the Vande Bharats, there is a lot of opportunity of innovation there. Second, so logistics is one area, reskilling is another area, security is another area, just that is. And again, you have to look at, I'll give you a framework of thinking. One is, do you want to do a mass consumption technology or mass consumption solution, which is, like I think Nikhil alluded to, even the micro loans that we have, right? That's, again, you can have a very large swath of people, versus if you put something, if you have something which is more like cred or for HNIs, again, the slice of the problem you are solving or the size of the segment is different. So first there are problems everywhere. Any segment you go to, sustainability is a big one, logistics is a big one, reskilling is a big one, security is another one. So it's everywhere. The problems are there. It's what you can connect with, what you can feel passionate about, and what can keep you going until you solve it and say, yes, I did something meaningful. I think that's basically the end.
And also identifying the gaps. Like, I'll give you two examples then, which I really like them. Both of them come from the 10 years back, like 12 years back, when Deepinder Goyal started Zomato. At that time, who have thought that you require food to be delivered at your home, and how do you manage those things? Earlier, I remember we used to go and pick up the food if we have to eat at home, or you go to restaurant, but the whole ecosystem changes. And again, the watershed movement or Paytm movement for them was during the COVID time, when people were not willing to go to the restaurant, but they still wanted to eat outside. So the whole ecosystem changes. Today, Zomato is a very large company. They got listed for almost 100 lakh crore on the browsers. The share market keeps ups and down, but today Zomato is no doubt is the de facto #1 food delivery service in the country. And it is quite difficult for us to remove Zomato from, even we say, okay, we don't want Zomato with something, but Zomato is there to stay. That's something which I believe. He understood the problem and he solved it. Another very interesting problem was recently solved, called Zepto or Blinkit. Like, again, why you need a bread in 10 minutes time? You will ask this question to yourself. Why you need eggs immediately. You can always plan your grocery. Like if you look at the whole grocery ecosystem, which was built up earlier in US, people used to buy from Costco's and other places 30 days in advance. Like they go one of the weekends, they filled up their whole back of the sedan and they bring the sedan at home and you stock everything and that's it, it's done. Maybe for a small thing, you can go to a corner shop and pick up something. Even in India, people, I remember our parents used to go to a baniya shop and buy stuff for a month or a week or something, and there was a register which you can write it down. And in the end of the month, you can do the full hisab of the things that you have got. Like this is a structured way of doing things. When we were growing up, you started going from Big Bazaar or the Sainsbury, or Sainsbury's in UK, sorry, but the other places here, Spencer's. But again, this company, like 1.5 years back, this company Zepto, 19-year-old, they came, they said there is a gap, then we can solve this problem. So identifying the gap is also very interesting. Sometimes you can create a need for it. Like perhaps there is no gap that exists, but you are so good, then you can understand the psychology of a person or the consumer and you can create need for it. The need to get a bread in 10 minutes time, the need to get eggs in 10 minutes time, need to get a small grocery in 10 minutes time at a doorstep. That is something which is interesting, and they have built up a fantastic business. Again, there may be a criticism about the whole ecosystem. That's a different story, but I would say they built up the business, they proved the model, and that's what we call the problem solving. So identifying the gap, working towards a gap, solving a problem is something what you should look at, and how you can do that quickly is the startup. There are two questions about like touchless. Vinay Tiwari has asked about the touchless. I think there is Ajay has asked one more question. What can we build around UHI, like Paytm build on the top of UI? Any thoughts on ideas on this? Yes, I have a lot of insights about unified health interface, but perhaps we will do another webinar for that, how this Haba ID and authentication as a service is going on and what is going on NHA. I believe NHA, Abha, unified health interface will be much bigger gameplay than the UPI. It's a game-changing environment what the government of India has done. No other country, I must give a hats off to our government, that the platform, the large public tech platform that they have built up, like UPI, like Aadhaar, and now the unified health interface. This public infrastructure which has been built up, it's beyond imagination. Even the large countries like US and China, others are not able to even thought about it even today. It's very difficult for them to even comprehend, build up that kind of. So that our government has built up in the last 6-7 years time. And the unified health interface will be a bigger and much important play for all of us in going further. Perhaps we will do another webinar on around that. We will invite 1 or 2 experts from the National Health Authority for this webinar. So with this, I must thank everyone, particularly Rajesh and Dinesh, for coming on Sunday evening. That shows the commitment. Like a lot of people ask me this question, like what you do during the weekday. I say I work for startups. And what they say, ask me that, what's your hobby on the weekend? I say, again, do the startups. I work for the startups. So 7 days where you are passionate about something new, because every day you are learning something new, you are discussing something new. Like 7 days is a weekday, 7 days a week off. Every evening is a morning, every morning is a evening. That this khichdi that you come up with, but that I can guarantee that khichdi is a pancharanga khichdi, and that is good for your health. So let's jump and do some startup, do some interesting, innovative things, and not in Trump style, but certainly we can make the India great. India is great, and we will make it more great in the coming future. So thanks a lot for coming today for this webinar. This will be available live on YouTube. We will share the link with everyone. You can share from your social media, other places, so that people can get benefit. And if you have any questions, you can certainly reach out to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Dhanyawad.
Nikhil.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank
Bye.
you so much, sir, dear panelists. Thank you so much, and all the attendees. Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
great day
Bye.
ahead.
Bye.
Bye.